Welcome back, everybody. My name is Dante Dimatteo. I'm a pharmacist with the Joe Dimatteo group and recently Precision Nutrition certified. In this video, I wanted to just let you in on a discussion that I had with a colleague as it relates to his fitness goals. So this particular individual has already been primarily focusing on distance running and has also recently incorporated some cycling. So he asked basically, how can I start to incorporate some resistance training into what I'm already doing? Do I have any thoughts on how to make that happen? So the first thing I kind of encouraged him to look at is to essentially break this up into patterns and not overcomplicate things. There are 6 basic movement patterns that you can focus on. They are simply push, pull, bend, squat, lunge, and core. So as someone, let's say, new to resistance training, I would encourage you to try and touch on each of those patterns in a given session, potentially, probably about 1 to 2 times a week, more if your schedule allows for it. So in the context, again, of somebody new to training, the goal as a framework is to be hitting anywhere from 2 to 4 sessions a week. I think that taking this full body approach as described in those patterns is probably the biggest bang for your buck time-wise, because our time is a crucial investment as it relates to our health, as it is to anything. So that's a very important part to keep in mind, is the time you're putting in. So you may have heard that it's better to train back and biceps on a certain day, leave legs for a separate day. That's totally fine. But again, this is in the context of a novice trainee, somebody newer who's only lifting maybe like 2 to 4 days a week, let's say, or 2 to 3, and trying to make sure that they don't neglect any of those patterns on a weekly and monthly basis. So the context here just lends itself to focus a little more on that full body resistance split. The next point I would suggest is to try and keep the resistance training. And what that means, this individual, because they're already running and biking, they already have that aerobic box pretty well checked off. So if you were to participate in high intensity circuits with weights all the time, you're jacking up your heart rate, in addition to the increased heart rate and the increased aerobic focus that you're getting from the running and biking you're already doing, it's just kind of more of the same, if you kind of catch my drift there. So the next point that we discussed, it was simply for him to just try and keep the resistance training. And what I mean by that is, many of us will try to just grab a bunch of different exercises, wrap them up with a neat little bow into a circuit, time ourselves, see how many rounds we could get, and it becomes very aerobic in nature. And that's totally fine if you're maybe not already getting that aerobic work from the biking and the running. So in that case, what I would suggest for him is to increase your rest times. Treat, again, resistance training as a kind of a separate entity. And then this way, your aerobic work is your aerobic work and your resistance training is your resistance training. So the next logical continuation of that part would be to try and expose yourself to a variety of reps and sets. So what that means, let's just say the exercises you're choosing are a little more hypertrophy focused, or you're trying to maybe gain some muscle size. You want to aim from anywhere from 1 to 3 sets to then 8 to 12 reps of those sets. An example would be looking at accessory exercises. So those are things that incorporate like biceps and triceps, like your curls and skull crushers, or anything that is more accessory in nature. The next piece would be to look at our strength focused exercises to incorporate. You might have a little higher amount of sets, but the repetitions come down. And again, that's just to change the stimulus that you're getting. And again, as a beginner, it might make more sense to apply that set and rep scheme to compound movements. And compound movements consist of squats, deadlifts, pressing, things that incorporate larger muscles and require sort of larger motor unit recruitment. The next step and the final step would still be to prioritize progression over time. So you might ask, well, how am I supposed to progress if I have limited equipment or if I can't really increase the weight much? I only have, 10s, 15s, and 25s. How am I supposed to progress over time? Well, it is ideal if you have access to varying loads that you can begin to expose yourself to, but there are still ways to progress in nature. So for example, if the increments of weight that you have are small, you can still increase that slightly over weeks and months. That's still a tangible way to make progress. The next thing would be to add an extra set. So let's just say you've hit a list of exercises, things are feeling pretty good. You've done three sets of 12 reps for your accessory exercises, and you're ready for that next phase. Well, in weeks 3 and 4, instead of 3 sets, you add 4 sets, and you do that for a couple weeks. You see how that feels, and then you can kind of get back to the drawing board from there. But again, the point is that there are little variables that you can manipulate to make you feel like progress is being made, because it actually is. In addition to adding an extra set, you can incorporate some supersets, and this requires maybe a little more creativity. You can choose complementary and non-complementary exercises. So this would be coupling something like the bicep curl with the tricep extension. Or if you wanted to, let's just say, increase the stimulus for the leg workout that you're doing, you can couple squats with lunges. And so in my opinion, that those are sort of non-complementary because they are driving the same, they're working the same sort of muscle makeup. So just little ways that you can make the workout harder, or kind of just drive additional adaptations and expose yourself to an array of exercises, which is critical. Finally, you can implement tempo and pause reps. So what that would mean is, let's just say you're squatting and you're used to just kind of like mindlessly starting at the top, getting to the bottom, making it back up to the top, and rinsing and repeating. What you can do is, without changing the external load, you can implement tempo. So you're essentially making the workout heavier or harder without the added load. So let's just say you add some tempo. That would look like 3 seconds down, which is 1, 2, 3, and then you pause for 1 or 2 seconds, and then you explode from the bottom. You just added 5 or 6 seconds of time under tension to one repetition. So whereas you were used to just kind of, banging out squats or lunges or deadlifts in 1 to 2 seconds per rep, where now you're talking like 6 to 8 seconds per rep. I mean, you talk about bang for your buck and you talk about a change in stimulus. That's sort of the name of the game. That would be I could probably have listed that as the number one thing to do. I know that was sort of just a broad stroke over some sort of beginner or novice exercise principles. So if you have more questions about those, feel free to come to us. I just wanted to kind of let you inside on that conversation that we had. Those were basically the suggestions that I gave him, somebody with limited equipment, limited time, and also with probably a little more of an emphasis and priority on running and biking, the things that keep him very adherent. So hope you enjoyed. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this video, we would appreciate it very much if you would subscribe and hit the bell below. Thanks.